South Asians are stereotyped as model minorities with certain expected behavior. These stereotypes are encouraged by media stories such as articles by Forbes magazine entitled Indian Americans, the New Model Minority. Richwine claims the success of Indian Americans is often ascribed to the culture they bring with them. Highlights of parents being diligent and happy at how their children win spelling bee contests and so on. Let's talk to our panelists today. Vidya, welcome to our show. Thank you so much for joining us. And Charmaine, thank you so much. We are going to hear from Vidya first. You host the Safari Kids quiz show on Radio Zindagi. Now, you meet a lot of kids. What do you see? I mean, are we doing the right thing by putting them in so many classes and wanting them to really excel in each one of them?
Well, I think this is a sort of a phenomenon that I like to call childhood by proxy. We grew up, at least I grew up in India with very few opportunities. I lived in a very small town. The only time I actually was exposed to this was by the time I was in college. And you did whatever your parents thought, was available, and not a lot was available. We come to this country and suddenly there's this cornucopia of classes and musical instruments to learn and robotics, and it's a lot. And we want our kids to be exposed to all of it.
Well, that's a baggage you're carrying from India, from your childhood, and you want to do something over here to your kids that is actually stemming out of what you went through. And what do you have to say to that?
I think it is really hard for parents to separate their own desires and their own expectations from the experiences of their children. I think it is well-intentioned. I think we want our children to have everything that we didn't have growing up. But sometimes what happens is that burden of that expectation is overwhelming for the kids. Children are so busy. They're shuttled from one activity to the other. They really can't find what they truly care about, what they love to do. So I think sometimes stepping a little bit back, and while I think when they're younger, it's right to expose them to a lot of different activities, as they get older, letting them choose the few things that they truly care about and focusing on that is probably
Even when they're younger, would you say that too many activities are going to take the focus away from one? You put them in a lot of things. They are also not able to find their sweet spot, right?
Well, I'll give you an example. I went to a meeting of the Singularity University, which is somewhere local here.
Stanford.
It's a really prestigious place. And I met this amazing young lady. She was at the Georgia State University. She was there on a scholarship. She played 2 varsity sports. She played volleyball and she played soccer. In addition, she kept a straight A grade point average, and she was very interested in film. And that's what she was there at Singularity U for. She was making a film on the impact of some third world problem and how it could be solved. So I actually asked her, how the heck do you have the time? She says, if I have a lot to do, a lot gets done. And I really felt that there are some people who can take it.
Well, are you confusing that with her talent? She may be gifted and talented, and we want that to happen to every kid. It's not going to happen. So by taking one example of a person who's really excelled and done good in all aspects, are we trying to duplicate that with someone else who may not excel, but we're pushing them? And by doing that, maybe not having them express what they really want to do.
Yeah, because this example that you're giving to me sounds phenomenal, because really it's like a certain type of a sport in filmmaking along with maintaining grades. But unfortunately, a lot of the parents that sometimes I run across are not, allowing their children to explore as many diverse things. It's sort of like piano or violin or nothing else, Lego robotics or nothing else. And they're like the same 5 or 6 activities that all the children are doing, and they're all expected to go together and excel in all of them, whether they're interested or not. And I think that's where it sort of gets a little bit dangerous, because everybody's trying to keep up with the Joneses, going after the same activities.
The kids, when they're exposed to too many of these things, maybe then they find a sweet spot also. That could be argued by the parents who are doing it, is because they feel you get sharper and sharper the more you're put in, adverse
I love what
situation.
you're saying, and I think always there's a little bit of a balance. So like the same approach we have in education. where the younger they are, the more they're exposed to different things, but then slowly you start specializing. I think as parents, we need to allow the same opportunity for our kids. When they're very young, yes, let them get exposed to a lot of different things, but as they get older, it's quite fine, I think, to be focused on 1, 2, 3 things, no more, that really are things you're passionate at and that you can excel
See, the
at.
word focus and 1, 2, 3 doesn't happen. Focus means you put everything in one point, right? You cannot focus in 3 areas. Like,
One seems
you know,
a little
that
extreme.
girl excelled in so many things. But the other part of it is, you know, the parents, they are giving up their job, particularly the moms in this world. They're giving up their jobs because they have to cope with taking the kids to all these activities. They aren't finding anyone to do that for them, right? So how does that play with the mind of the child as a role model who do not see their parents or their mom trying to excel in her own career and constantly obsessed with the child's career? How does that play with their mind?
You'll be surprised. I think if you talk to someone who has excelled in a field, a lot of times they're going to credit their parents for pushing them. I'll give you an example from my own son. When he was younger, I put him in piano. It seems so cliched, right? Piano. Why? Because it was available, because it was nearby, because we had a convenient class and I could take him for it. There were many times in the course of his childhood where he was like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is too hard. And you see, when you're learning a musical instrument, actually that's true about anything. But when you're learning something, you will face these little speed bumps where the level of difficulty just goes up a little bit, you know, and then that's where you're like, the child turns back and says, I can't do this anymore. And then you have 2 choices as a parent. You can be the sympathetic parent and you can say, it's okay, honey, you don't have to. Just do it at your level, your pace, whatever you do. Or you can be the tiger mom and say, no, it's got to be done. I don't care how you do it. So I think I took the second approach without being so dramatic about it. But I did say that, look, it's a hump. If you don't go over it, you're never going to get to where you want to be. And like anything else, you like something once you're good at it. So if you're the parent,
do you think that push is the right thing? Because every child will come back and say that, hey, I don't want to do it anymore. And I have faced with my own daughter too.
Absolutely.
There's things that she was doing and at some point she would cry and say, I don't want to do it. And I took the first approach and I said, okay, it's fine. Let me know what you want to do, because I wanted her to be happy more than being forced to doing something. Would you say that forcing works?
I think if you find yourself always pushing your kids, I don't think then that's a partnership approach to parenting. I think that you're imposing your will on the child and not really being a good listener. The right approach probably, I think, is more of a balanced one, where there are some activities the kids are doing that they really enjoy, that they gravitate towards, it speaks to their strengths, they want to go do that, and you're supporting and encouraging that. And then there are some weaknesses that they might have, some development opportunities, and maybe there's one activity that you're pushing on them that's the right thing for them to do, and as a parent you understand that. Maybe once in a while that's okay. But for the most part, if everything that they're doing is all about push, 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 I don't think that's the right approach.
But on the note of push, 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 I mean, every kid is getting pushed around. Like, you know, like Vidya, there are many other parents who are pushing their kids to excel in, and pick up something and excel. Now, your kid is growing up in that environment. Now, you're not pushing your child, other people are. Your child is going to be always behind. So, since everyone's pushing, do you feel that peer pressure to push?
I do. I think parenting is very tough right now because we have 2 things that are going on. The world is becoming very competitive, or at least that's a perception. We all feel like there are all these different kids who are all getting ahead, and if we don't push our kids, they won't get ahead enough. At the same time, we have to remember that our kids are going out in that very competitive world. Every day, if you've done your job right, if you've made their role as a student clear, you have high expectations of them and you've made that clear, and you're providing them with the right support. I think that most kids these days know that they need to go out there and compete, and they're trying their best. If at home you're just always being aggressive as well, then there is no sort of safe haven for your kids. Kids are getting very stressed. There's a lot more teenage depression. In the high school that my son will be going to, there was just a suicide last year, and this is getting more and more common. So I think a little bit of, as parents, we need to figure out how do we provide balance to our kids in an increasing competitive and aggressive world where kids can come home and know no matter what, I'll have unconditional love.
Now,
I have
is
parents who
our
support
community responsible for bringing this culture? Our parents always pushed us. We had no choice. We couldn't even say yes or no. I mean, yes, you have to do it means you have to do it. Now, are we bringing that culture to a country that is so different, and there are so many other opportunities here than we had back home. Do you think it's the right thing to do by bringing that culture here in the US of pushing and always wanting them to excel, not leaving any space for them to even interact with their peers or their neighbors?
Here's a simple thing. The people who have emigrated from India and come here are a certain type of people. They're here because they themselves were very ambitious, very aggressive, wanting to do better. It's not surprising that their kids are going to be the same. And it's not surprising that they have that attitude. So I think if you know your child well, there is no harm in saying, I want excellence in whatever you do. Whatever you do to the best of your ability. You don't take a pass on it. I think it's fine. What's wrong with that? I think, how are we going to help them face the real world where they're going to be competing in the workforce, in the music studio, in wherever they happen to be, if we don't expect that excellence from them?
Balance, we all agree, is the right thing to do, but we don't keep that balance, and that's why we are having this debate today. We don't keep that balance, and the question is, by not keeping the balance, are we harming the kid more, or we are helping them grow and excel in an area that we feel they should excel in? We are there to just provide them guidance, but sometimes we push a little too much. We feel that guidance we take in our stride and feel whatever we want them to do, they should do. And that is where the debate is, whether that's a right or the wrong thing to do. It could be right or it could be wrong. We don't know that. Thank you so much for joining us in this debate today.